To turn on the recording. At 1 p.m. on July 27th, 2015, we are meeting pursuant to Section 3012C5A of the State Education Law, the determination of the New York State Department of Education, and the procedures collectively bargained and agreed upon by the various parties involved, to review an appeal of a rating of ineffective given by John Ficalora, Principal, Newtown High School, Queens High Schools, to Alan Tobin for the period ending June 2014. The appellant was employed as a teacher of Social Studies Day High School, serving under file number 657115. I will now ask each of you to introduce yourself for the record and to state the capacity in which you're here. We will begin with the rating officer and go around the room. Mr. Ficalora, please.
My name is John Ficalora. I'm the principal of Newtown High School, Elmhurst, Queens.
Thank you. And assigned by the United Federation of Teachers to represent the appellant, beautiful bells, is?
Martin Rosenblum, UFT.
Okay, and our appellant is?
Alan Tobin.
Thank you. We all, at both ends of this conversation, including Mr. Ficalora at the school, we have numbered sets of documents. Mr. Ficalora also has the key to the numerical scheme that the United Federation of Teachers has used for this set of documents. It has. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go on to the procedures that were established for the hearing, these kind of hearings. I want to emphasize the procedures that I'm about to read were agreed upon, hammered out, negotiated, settled upon by both the United Federation of Teachers and the Department of Education under the direction of the State Education Department and the Commissioner of Education. So let me read them, and everyone please follow carefully, so I'll try to go over them in the best way I can. Each side will have a maximum of 2 hours for the purpose of providing testimony, utilizing cross-examination, conferring with an advisor, calling witnesses, and requesting time for breaks. The 120 minutes is exclusive of the presentation of procedural objections, which will be recorded, however. Please note that the only official recording of these proceedings will be the one made by the technician present, and the chairperson is the only officially designated timekeeper. Requests for audio CDs of these deliberations must be made within 2 months of the hearing date. At the end of this session, the appellant will be given, he has been given the required form. The required form that he has been given will be looked over, and it will be checked that it is accurate by the chairperson as to the number of CDs involved and any potential cost if he desires them. Now, this is the very, very key part of what I'm going to say in terms of the burden of proof and in terms of the, and then I'll get to the order of statements. Please be advised that the burden of proof is on the appellant based on the specific areas of disagreement submitted with his appeal, to indicate where a substantial error or defect has occurred, and to establish the facts upon which he is seeking relief, and to demonstrate a clear legal right to the relief requested. Now for the order of the presentations. Hence, following the presentation and ruling of procedural objections, the review will begin with the appellant/union presenting its case for relief. That's followed by the administration in a combined period where the principal will have the opportunity, if he chooses, to cross-examine the appellant's statement with questions, and then immediately included in that block of time would be the rating officer's presentation itself. That's followed by the appellant/union's cross-examination of any statement that the principal has chosen to make. And then we get to the concluding statements. The administration concludes their presentation first, and then the appellant and the union advocate make their concluding statement. It is requested and required that professionalism and civility be adhered to by both parties at all times. I think that goes without saying. Of course it will be. And we will begin with procedural objections. But before we do the procedural objections, I had one more question for the principal in this ever-changing world. Just bear with me for a second. Mr. Ficalora, the superintendent, is it Donald Conyers?
No, it was Juan Mendez for the school year in which the rating took place. Juan Mendez.
No, but right now, I think Donald Conyers is acting.
No, it's Elaine Lindsay.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
And that's the Queens High Schools?
Well, she's Bronx and Queens.
Okay, but it's definitely Elaine Lindsay
Yes,
who
our
should.
school.
Yeah, because when a chancellor's decision is rendered, the superintendent gets a copy. I just want to make sure. So it does go to Elaine Lindsay, right?
Yes.
Is that Lindsey?
Yes.
Would you know her email off the top of your head?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll
I can
get
it and email it to you.
No, that's okay. I can find it out as well. Very good. I'm glad I checked that because that was not correct. They do change. Everything changes, but now we have it straight. Okay. So, Mr. Rosenblum.
Yes.
Do you have, sir, any procedural objections?
No objection, sir.
Okay, so we have no objections. We will go proceeding right on to the appellant's statement. And this is the appellant's opportunity to present his, the burden of proof is on him, so this is the opportunity to make a statement in that behalf.
Okay, are we ready, sir?
Right.
Thank you very much. Okay, good afternoon. This chancellor's proceeding is governed by Education Law 3012 C5A as interpreted by the determination and order of the Commissioner of Education dated June 1st, 2013. According to the order, page 46, the teacher has the burden of demonstrating a clear legal right to the relief requested and the burden of establishing the facts upon which the teacher seeks relief. On page 47, the Commissioner states, if the appeal is sustained, the Chancellor or designee may set aside a rating if it has been affected by substantial error or defect, modify a rating if it has been affected by substantial error or defect, or order a new evaluation if procedures have been violated. Accordingly, if the appellant establishes that the evaluation has been affected by substantial error or defect, then they have established a clear legal right to the relief under the order, and the said evaluation may be modified or set aside. The Department of Education's Advanced Guide for Educators, 2013-2014, sets forth the components and requirements of the evaluation system. The evaluation system is based on cycles of observations, including feedbacks. Mr. Tobin is retired, but has a long history of 25 years plus teaching satisfactorily for the Department of Education. In the year 2013-2014, on his MOTP, he received a score of 29, which has a heady rating of ineffective. On his MOSL measures, on the state measures, he received a score of 15, which has a heady rating of effective. On his local measures, he received a score of 16, which has a heady rating of effective. His overall rating from advanced based on their computation was ineffective. Mr. Tobin, to support his argument that there was a defect in this system, has prepared for us today and submitted to Mr. Ficalora several worksheets which indicate the specific areas of disagreement that Mr. Tobin has. I would like to begin. First, I would like to mention, according to Mr. Tobin, that he was observed, or supposedly, he claims that an observation report was given to him this September 2014 for an observation dated October 1st, 2013. According to Mr. Tobin, he has no knowledge of an observation taking place on that day, and the signature that appeared, according to Mr. Tobin, was not his signature.
Oh, I'm so sorry,
Sure.
Mr. Rosenblum.
Right.
I lost track for a second. I was looking at dates.
Right.
What is it that you just said? Something
According
about...
to Mr. Tobin,
Right.
he wished to indicate that there was a report, an evaluation for an observation dated October 1st, 2013.
Hold on. Is that an observation, specific area of disagreement?
It was not disagreed to because I never received that. I never had an observation that day. I did not receive a form of that observation until September of 2014 to say that I was observed on October 2013.
So you're saying that October 1st, 2013, you...
Did not get observed.
Okay, you did not get observed, but you got an observation report of that day, referring to that day,
Correct.
the following school year.
Correct.
Okay. Now, what I need to do, because of the rules, I'm not going to read them again, but because everything here has to draw from a foundation established by you with the burden of proof in your hands,
Right.
draw from a specific area of disagreement.
Understood. I
So
just want to
that
say
was
that.
not-
I just want to say the only things that you see in those forms are the 3 observations that I had personal knowledge of that I responded to. I did not receive that other observation
Okay.
to respond to it until way after the fact.
Okay, so in any case, as far as this hearing goes, which is based on your ineffective rating for June of 2014, you didn't specifically object to anything in regard to this observation that you're talking about. You didn't know about it, but it isn't here in these specific
Right.
areas of disagreement, so it can't be brought up now.
So the fact that I checked off on the model that I want 3 mini observations and 1 formal observation, and I only received 3 observations instead of 4, that cannot go into the record?
Did you object to... Now, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
When you filled out these specific areas of disagreement,
Correct.
when you did that, that was within 2014, correct?
I did not receive the forms to download until the summer of 2014.
So the answer is yes. It was in 2014 that you received that you filled out these specific areas of
for
disagreement.
the 3
Right.
observations that I had knowledge of.
Right. Now, but I want to make sure I understand this. As of June 2014, were you aware that you did not receive a full complement in you're alleging that
Yes.
you didn't have the full complement of 3 informal observations and 1 formal
Yes.
observation? Okay. At that point, if you knew that that was a defect, it didn't become apparent to you when you got an observation that you say didn't really take place the following school year. You were notified that there was an observation on October 1st. You already knew within the time frame of ending in June 2014 that something was missing.
Yes.
And you didn't put it in as a specific area of disagreement, right?
I was told to only go against the observations that I knew about.
Okay, but under observations, I believe you would have been aware that you could have said, one of my observations, specific areas of disagreement, is I'm missing an observation.
I was told that I had to go exactly to what I had in front of me. What had happened was that I took terminal leave on May 20th. And I came back at the end of June to say goodbye to my class, to say goodbye. At that time, I had no idea what was going on with all these observations.
Okay, let me
Go ahead.
The point is, I hear the various aspects of the scenario, terminal leave, etc.
Right.
But the point is, the only things that you can bring up during the hearing, this is the rule. And if I don't allow it, then I have to entertain anything the principal wants to say about anything.
No, I understand. He can
What I
say
mean
anything
is,
he
I'm
wants.
just giving you an
Yeah,
example
I
of how
understand.
open.
Yeah,
I don't have the choice. What I'm saying is, if it's not in the specific area of disagreement that's in front of us, it can't be brought up.
understood.
So if it's understood, move forward to the next point.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Yeah, in other words, any further that we go, I still can't
Yeah.
hear it, even though you could say, hypothetically, and this is the last on this
Right,
area.
okay.
You could say, hypothetically, this morning, someone called me and they told me something else took place during that school year in question, but I didn't know about it till this morning. If it isn't here in writing, it can't be entered.
Understood. What I had done when I heard about this fourth one, I went straight to the union to do what you're saying that I was supposed to do, and I did fill out a worksheet on that specific observation.
But it isn't
That's not
here.
there, and
Okay.
I don't know
Then we move
what happened to
forward.
it.
I don't know either, but
Okay.
we move forward.
Okay.
Move forward.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for
You're
your
very welcome.
clarification.
And thank you for making it as clear as you've made it. on
Tried to
that.
make it clear.
Okay, thank you very
it's
much.
very clear, but
It's appreciated.
move
Okay,
forward.
moving to the observation of November 6th, 2013, which
Okay.
we have here. Okay, Mr. Tobin received an ineffective rating on component 2D, managing student behavior. According to Mr. Tobin, a student in the class who was misbehaving was a behavioral problem all term. Mr. Tobin did attempt to address the problem. Letters were sent to parents. He kept in communication with them. The child did receive detention several times. The adverse behavior did continue. In general, outside of this one student, the class is generally extremely quiet. Referring to component 2E, organizing physical space, in which Mr. Tobin refers to the fact that the desks in his classroom do not move. They're the old style desks, and to have students go around one desk would be an unsafe environment. According to Mr. Tobin, he did discuss this with the principal the month before, and it was indicated that those desks would be removed. Component 3D, using assessment and instruction. According to Mr. Tobin, the assistant principal stayed for less than 10 minutes in this period and could not accurately give a fair rating because this was a double period class.
I was the last 10 minutes
Okay,
of the
final.
of the two periods that she came in on. So she missed one full period and 30 out of 40 minutes of the second period when she came into the class.
Okay, component 3E, demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness, in which an ineffective rating was given. Mr. Tobin gives out handouts so that the students would be able to demonstrate and prove their opinion on many different subjects.
I just want to clarify. I just want to clarify on the handouts that I get. The handouts were a list of facts on geography of different areas of the world. That particular day, I would give out those facts, and what the students were supposed to do is look over the facts and in groups, well, next to the partners that they would have next to each other, come up with a list of pertinent facts and make decisions on why they were important rather than other facts that were on that sheet.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Moving forward to April 9th.
Okay.
Okay, according to Mr. Tobin, the observation of April 9th, 2014 is listed at the top where that the evidence and scores in this form are from the formal observation cycle. Again, as we noted before, Mr. Tobin did mention he chose that option, which included the informals and one formal. According to Mr. Tobin, it's listed here as a formal observation, but he informs us that it was not a formal observation. He didn't know about it until that period. That period, and again, was indicated further on his conference worksheets. There was no pre-observation conference nor a post-observation conference for this period, and the supervisor who came in stayed for less than 10 minutes for this particular lesson. However, on this observation report for this lesson, which was indicated in formal, there was several ratings put down for several of the components, which we would like to.
Hold on one second,
sure.
please. And that is because I just wanted to check one thing. I'm cross-referencing this. I'm cross-referencing this. Oh,
Yes.
you said, Mr. Rosenblum,
Yes.
earlier, you said that there was an observation on November 6, 2013.
We went through that, correct.
Right. And you said the AP stayed for less than 10 minutes.
That's according to Mr.
And
Tobin.
Mr. Tobin said it was actually the last 10 minutes of a double
Correct,
period
correct,
block.
yes.
But now, what I'm trying to figure out is, are you saying, is this like not a typo, but a verbo? Are you saying that for the formal observation
Of April 9th.
of April 9th, that the supervisor stayed for less than 10 minutes also? Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. The reason I wanted to make sure is that when I looked at the formal observation, I had seen that claim, but I said, wait, the formal observation, well, you know what, I don't want to say anything except I saw so much covered in the formal observation. I said, how could that have been a 10-minute? Maybe it's like a typo. Maybe that was the 10 minutes for the other lesson, but you're claiming it was only 10 minutes for the formal as well. Okay.
Yes.
Thank
Continue.
you.
I just
Okay,
thought-
thank you. Okay, and again, as we just alluded to, the fact that in that short period of time there were many components rated. I would like to begin by referring to component 2D, managing student behavior. This again is on the observation of April 9th. According to Mr. Tobin, the students are always being told to come in before the bell.
I'm at the
As-
door.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm at the door.
Very good.
Getting in.
And this, just one second, I just want to make sure I got the right document here. I'm looking and see if that, I think that's
Sorry.
document,
Okay.
no, it's okay. I think it's document 5. Yes. Mr. Ficalora?
Yes.
Hi. I think what Mr. Rosenblum and Mr. Tobin are referring to, they have their own scheme of lettering, of keys, a key.
I see it's on 5.2.
Yes, right. Document 5 is that whole observation, and they're saying that in regard to 2D, if I don't find it, then I find it hard to follow. So let's look at 2D, and 2D is, right, document 5.2, and please, Mr. Rosenblum.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No.
Again, the students were always told to come in before the bell, and according to Mr. Tobin, the assistant principal was not in the room at the time, so Mr. Tobin wonders and questions how that number of 6 late students was arrived at. The students know the proper behavior, and in his period 5 class, he's had no...
okay.
The period... I can't read that.
Sorry. You're right. You're right.
In his period, no, it's difficult. But the period 5 class, he's had no problems with any of the behavior of the students in that period. Okay, in accordance with component 3B, 3B is using questioning and discussion techniques. The assistant principal, according to Mr. Tobin, only wrote down the questions she heard, and in the 10 minutes that she was in the room, according to Mr. Tobin, she only heard 6 questions, and it's very difficult to make a judgment on his questioning and discussion techniques when such a short period of time was spent in the classroom. Moving on to component 4B. 4B is maintaining accurate records, in which it's indicated that no gradebook or records were produced according to the observer. 4B, according to Mr. Tobin, he keeps all his records on Easy Grade Pro, as the principal requested the teachers to do. All his anecdotals, attendance, contact information, seating charts are in the computer, as well as the grades and the student progress charts. The AP knew about these records, and Mr. Tobin was following the school's directives and using Easy Grade Pro to keep accurate records. Component 4 C, communicating with families, in which it's indicating that the teacher produced a class information handout that indicated an email address, tutoring information, and important websites, and said that the teacher's communication to parents is minimal, in which he received an ineffective rating for that component. Mr. Tobin was in contact throughout the year with various parents of students that needed to show improvement. He was willing to print out letters to the parents, but it was told that it was too late. It was in the computer. He felt that his contact with the parents was not minimal and did improve throughout the year. And again, to repeat, he did maintain contact with the parents for the entire school year. Moving on to the observation of April 11th, 2014.
Okay, that must be document 6. Yes.
Okay. Okay, in April 11th, I would like to refer to component 3B, using questioning and discussion techniques. Mr. Tobin continuously referred to previous lessons that covered the curriculum, where most students were able to pick up, since his class had many students who did very well in the class. This was a very high-level class. He had discussions throughout the day with the class, and to cover stuff that was covered during the class. There were high-order thinking skills used, and a great deal of rigor was present in his lesson. Component 3D, using assessment in instruction. According to Mr. Tobin, for this lesson on the April 11th, the AEP did stay for the lesson, and he wanted to show...
I'm sorry, he stayed for what?
For the entire lesson on April 11th.
She
She
stayed.
did. And excuse me, she stayed. And Mr. Tobin wanted to show that there were a couple of Regents questions that covered the day's lesson on the European Union. According to Mr. Tobin, the aim was answered. Now, what I would like to do is just move on to the worksheet on the conferences.
Okay, specific areas of disagreement.
Yeah, okay, we spoke earlier, we had a reference to the
Conferences.
fact that on the lesson of April 9th, the lesson that was listed as a formal observation, and again, just to repeat, Mr. Tobin indicates that there was no pre- or post-observation conference for those particular lessons. Also, we're going to discuss something, and I'm going to have Mr. Tobin elaborate a little more, that in accordance with the system for rating for the year, Mr. Tobin was required to have a summative conference at the end of the year, at which time his artifacts would be discussed and his whole progress for the year would be discussed. According to Mr. Tobin, he did not receive the summative conference, or a conference that was supposed to be the summative conference. I would like to indicate, and Mr. Tobin is going to elaborate, Mr. Tobin did take a leave prior to the end of the year, so his last day was
May 20th.
May 20th, at which time he had to bring everything together.
Let me get that clear. So you went on what kind of a leave?
I did terminal leave on May
Terminal
20th.
leave.
Wait, May 20th, 2014.
Right.
You went on terminal leave, using up half of your sick days?
About 85%. As it turned out, I
Well,
retired
it's
June
like
30th.
2 for 1, I
Oh,
think.
yeah,
Yeah, 1 for 2.
I retired June 30th with 7 days left.
So May 20, 2014, you're stating was your last day.
Yes.
You went on terminal leave and you never returned.
I came back, what I told the class was that I was leaving review packets for the global regions every day that I was going to be gone. And I was going to come back at the end of the term, look over their work, and I'd be able to adjust their grade appropriately based upon what they were going to do with these packets.
Did you come back officially?
not officially.
Okay, so when you went on terminal leave, I'm thinking terminal is terminal.
Right.
When you went on terminal leave, May 20th, 2014, you left the school,
Yes.
and that was a little more than a month before the end of the school year. Is that correct?
A little less than a month. The last day is
assuming-
June 16th. Is the
Right
last
before the
day.
Regents.
Right
I
before the
mean,
Regents.
Well, that might be the last day for the kids, but
Yes.
the teachers stayed
Yes,
till
yeah, oh, yeah, it's the
26th.
6th, right, yes.
Right. So you left a little more than a month before the last official day of teacher attendance.
Correct.
And when you went on terminal leave, did you put in paperwork indicating that you were going on terminal leave?
Yes,
Oh,
1st of April.
1st of April, and it was approved?
Yes.
Okay, please continue.
Okay, what I'm going to have Mr. Tobin, just to clarify that the situation with that summative conference, and then also Mr. Tobin is going to refer to the artifacts, okay?
Right.
Those two elements. Mr. Tobin, would you like to
Yes.
explain that a little?
On April 9th, as was said, that when the AP came in, she came in without any knowledge of me, so I didn't have any pre-conference, I didn't have any post-conference. On April 10th, she asked me to come in for a pre-observation conference on the formal observation on April 11th. I came in with my lesson plan. I came in with the handouts I was going to give out on the European Union. She said, "Where are my artifacts?" I said, "What artifacts?" She said, "You're supposed to have your artifacts right now." I said, "This is supposed to be a pre-observation conference on April 11th. I did not know to have them." She said, "So you are not giving in any artifacts?" I said, "No, I don't have any artifacts." So she said, "Well, this is the time to do it, so you have no artifacts." And that was the conference. So we did not talk about the lesson plan. We did not talk about anything I was going to do on the 11th. On the 11th, I expected her. I made sure I took pictures of the room to make sure to show that everything was in order. And she comes in right before the bell. That was when she saw some people coming in a little bit late on the 11th. I said to them, let's go, hustle up. She came in, did the lesson. I mentioned I had two handouts, one higher level and one sort of high level. One was on the Greeks, where they were defaulting on their loans to the European Union. And we went over that. And then I gave out a handout on why Turkey was not allowed to go into the European Union because the Greeks vetoed it. And I went for what I thought was going to be a 2-minute summation why the Greeks wouldn't allow Turkey to go in. And all I did was mention the Cyprus Civil War back in 1969, where they agreed to share power.
Hold on a second.
I know, but I'm leading you
I'm not
into.
taking the regions.
I'm leading you into what
So
we
you
were on.
gave a lot of detail.
Right, and she stood up in the back of the room and she yelled at me that I was wrong. I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Aristakis, but that's the way it was." We went back and forth for 3 minutes. The class, like on a tennis match, moved their heads back and forth to see what was going to happen. When that was done, I continued with the lesson. Not flustered, but the momentum of whatever I was doing was totally lost.
This is on April 11th.
So the class finished. She left. I got a call. Now again, we have a 10-period day. The last class I have is a double period, 9 and 10. I get a call about 5 minutes to left to go in period 8, and Mr. Aristakis says, "Come in tomorrow and bring your artifacts." I said, "You told me before I couldn't bring in my artifacts."
You could or couldn't?
Could not. She said, "Well, now bring them." Well, between the time when I was told that I couldn't bring them in, I just took whatever I had in my room and I tossed a lot of them out. I just figured if I'm not going to use them, then why have them? So I scrambled to get some things. I printed out on my computer that night to try to get something to bring in on the 11th. On the 12th. I go in expecting to talk about post-observation plus my artifacts. I gave her some of these artifacts. The first question she said to me was, "What Danielson rubric does this artifact cover?" I am sorry, I did not memorize my Danielson rubric. I said, "Can you help me with this?" She said, "It's not my job to help you with the Danielson rubric. You have to know which artifacts go to which Danielson rubric." I said, "I don't know." She said, "Do you have a copy of the Danielson rubric?" I said, yes, I do. And I quickly thumbed through trying to find where these artifacts fell under. I said, okay, how about this one? And she started to laugh at me, and she said, that's the one you're using for this artifact? I said, yes. And she said, okay, now how about this artifact? And I'm thumbing through, and I'm saying, how about this one? And she started to laugh again. And she said, oh, so you're using that artifact for this Danielson rubric? I said, yes. Then I had a letter from the SLC leader, the AP of Physical Education, who thanked me for producing a DVD on behalf of the SLC to give to parents on parent-teacher conference of all the work the SLC was doing that school year. So she said, so you want to use this as an artifact? I said, yes. She said, where's the DVD? I said, I gave it to the SLC. I'm having trouble burning the copies off my computer. I can't burn another copy. I'm just having trouble with it. She said, well, I have to talk to the principal to see if this letter's okay. Later, around again, at the end of the day, I get a call in my room, and she said, Mr. Tobin, you have until tomorrow to bring in a DVD because the letter is not good enough. You have to have a DVD. The letter is in the packet there that you
Yeah, no, I'm following in the artifacts
Okay,
worksheet.
right. So the letter is there. And I tried burning another copy that night, but my computer, there was I don't know what was going on. I couldn't burn another copy of that DVD.
Okay.
And that was it. The other artifacts that I had, that I would have shown if I knew to bring it in, I would have had a lot of the handouts that she gave to us to fill out on behalf of what we were doing with the students that school year. I had filled them all out. I just did not have them to give to her at that time that she asked. And I didn't have that. And I did not produce another one. And I thought it was unfair.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for expressing your thoughts, your feelings, and sharing what took place contemporaneously at that time. Thank
Okay,
you.
great, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, as we indicated in the opening statement, the students, Mr. Tobin's students score, based on their scores, the heady ratings for both components, both measures were effective. So the instructional program that Mr. Tobin presented during 2013-14 to generate those ratings, heady ratings of effective, indicates that there was instruction, there was an instructional program in which, as has always been the case with Mr. Tobin, the students in his charge did succeed and did do well. We feel that, as is indicated by the points mentioned, that there is a defect in the process, and we ask that you set aside the rating of ineffective as allowed by the order, and we recommend that Mr. Tobin receive a rating of developing or higher. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to one last statement. When I got the two observations to sign, I had it on the same day. So when I looked at the observations, it did not occur to me that she made the April 9th observation, the full period observation, and the April 11th observation, the mini observation. I signed both at the same time. I gave them in both at the same time, 3 copies each, and that was it. On the second to last day, I was in the school. I was told to see her. I went in to see her, which I thought was going to be my formative counsel or whatever.
What day was that?
No, I can tell you.
The day of your terminal leave began?
Day before the terminal leave.
Day before the terminal leave. I just want to make sure, because you said you came back, but it was
Oh,
unofficial.
no, okay. That was this is still May. I'm still talking about May here. So when I came back, I thought we were going to sit down and talk about everything. And she had a piece of paper that she had done. She said, sign this, please. I looked at it. I saw there were lots of boxes there. Most of the boxes were not checked off. There were a couple of boxes checked off. There was like an ineffective here, a developing here. There was like more developing than ineffective. And then I turned the sheet to page 2, and the last word on the bottom said developing. I thought that developing meant I'm getting a developing for the school year. I signed it.
That was the day before you went on terminal leave?
Correct.
And what was the document that we're talking about?
I thought I was talking about I thought it was a formative paper. It's not here.
Was it
I have
the
no idea. I thought that's what it was,
And maybe it was.
but I don't see it anywhere in any of the documents. than what I signed.
And when you signed it, you didn't take a copy?
I walked out.
You walked out.
I thought that I was done. I was going with my son to Normandy, and I was going to do that. You know, I walked out. I did
Okay.
not take a copy of what I signed that last paper.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank
That
you.
concludes your presentation. Thank you very, very much. So now, in the order of events that I outlined before, we would turn to the principal. Mr. Ficalora,
Yes.
I am sure you followed all this, and at this time, the administration, under the guidelines that we're operating, they get one block of time, and the administration is to be aware that the amount of time that they have, I need to note what time this is, 1:55, okay. I'm also the timekeeper. The amount of time that you have now is considered as one block of time, but you can cross-examine. Logically, you would ask questions now about anything in the presentation if you have any questions. If you don't have any questions, then this block of time becomes an introduction. I'm introducing you now to making your own presentation. So you can make a presentation now. You can ask questions first about the presentation you just heard. But within both of those activities, you have your time is starting. So do you have any questions that are essential?
I have one question for Mr. Tobin, and that is document 7.0, which is the artifact form. The only rating on that form is developing. Is that the form that he was speaking about that he signed and he did not take a copy?
I don't know. Let's see. Document 7.
Okay.
Now, I have to help them because they have the key, but they don't have the documents with the numbers. So, let me... Okay, document 7. 1 second.
That looks like that's it.
Hold on 1 second. 1 second. 1 second.
I see that there's like a lot of boxes. There's a lot of boxes.
Now, that was 5:15, and you went on terminal leave.
5:20.
So this would be
5 days before.
This is with the...
That's including the weekend also.
Document 7, the principal...
This is it.
Okay.
This is exactly it. So when I signed this,
5:15. You thought
right,
it
I thought
was
that was
the
like something. That was the only thing that I thought it was.
Okay.
Because I saw it said on top
Right,
here.
right, right. Don't write on it.
Oh, I'm not. Okay,
Oh,
sorry.
you saw this developing.
And I saw evaluate a form. I thought that was my evaluation.
Right, right, right. Yeah. Well, the term is evaluated, and it does say artifact. In any
Oh.
case, so the answer to the principal's question is
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next, I'd like to say that it was alleged that he only received 3 observations. I would like to state on the school's behalf that 4 observations...
Okay. So wait. 1 second.
Yeah.
If you're going to state on the school's behalf, then you've begun your presentation, which is perfectly fine. This is the presentation, right?
Yes,
Okay. So no more questions.
correct.
You have a block of time, so you can go back and forth, but just to help us.
I don't anticipate any
Okay.
further questions.
Okay, so presentation. You're saying that there were what?
There were 4 observations.
Okay.
The observation which Mr. Tobin calls into question, he also questioned with OSI and claimed, and OSI has determined that there was no forged signatures on that observation report.
I have not received that.
Okay.
Or I think that observation...
Actually, hold on 1 second.
I did not bring that up.
1 second. 1 second. Okay. I don't remember hearing anything about OSI reports, and
that's
certainly.
the observation that he claims...
No. I heard that. Mr. Ficalora, hold on. In addition to the timekeeping is really easy, for chair people. But in addition to that, as the appellant and his advisor were making their presentation, you can be sure that the chairperson was following along within the specific areas of disagreement that Mr. Tobin filled out. And where I didn't see a connection, I asked him, and he said, nope, it isn't in there. It was something I didn't know about in terms of that observation, actually, something in October. Possibly that observation, we think. But now, in the same way, because I've gone over these documents, and I'm familiar with them, these hearings are so different than the unsatisfactory hearings that we used to do. In this case, it's not an unsatisfactory hearing at all, not an unsatisfactory rating at all. But just as an example, when Mr. Ficalora, when you are mentioning something in regard to a particular observation, you said there were 4. I got that. Perfectly understandable, perfectly logical that you made the statement. But once you go on to explaining that the 4th one was actually one that had been presented, connected, part of some kind of an investigation, some kind of a complaint, but I assume, I'm not even going to assume. But once you go into that area, that wasn't brought up in the DOE position statement. I don't see it anywhere in the documentation that the rating officer provided. So it's coming out of left field. So that's why I'm stopping you, because I don't want the record to include anything about OSI that isn't already here before us. And so you can continue referring to that observation and anything else, but not to the peripheral. Oh, you see, now you can ask for whom the bell tolls. Mr. Ficalora, did I make that clear? I'm sorry. Mr. Ficalora?
Yes, I'm sorry. The clock was ringing, so
I love that sound.
Brain
Makes
problem.
me think of Ernest Hemingway. Please continue.
Yes. Okay. So
You can talk about 4 observations and
I
dates.
just want to state that there were 4 observations.
Okay.
And there was definitely a pre-observation conference and a post-observation conference.
For which observation?
For the one formal observation.
On what date?
The observation was on 4/11. No, I'm sorry, it was on 4/9.
Okay. Because that was not clear, and I wanted to make sure I got it straight.
Yes.
Okay, there may be disagreement about it, but at least I wanted to hear from the rating officer what his side or version is.
Yes.
Okay, please
The other thing
continue.
I'd like to state for the record is that in the school as a whole, we advertised the artifacts, the date they'd be due, what could be used, and that the chapter in the school also advertised to teachers about artifacts, what could be used, and how late they could be given in, and what the last date they could be given in. So I believe it was well publicized.
Okay.
I'd also like to just make a statement that according to the guidelines for submission of artifacts, the DOE publication Advanced Measures Teacher Practice, page 4, and the UFT publication Getting Started with the New Teacher Evaluation and Development System, page 3, teachers had until April 11th, 2014 to submit artifacts to the administration. All teachers were held to the same deadline. Mr. Tobin had ample time to select and submit artifacts to his supervisor. And then further, I'd like to state that Mr. Tobin's claims as they relate to his observation reports should be rejected, as Mr. Tobin's supervisor received the requisite training under Advance, analyzed the observational evidence using the Danielson rubric, and issued the ratings based on what was observed. The statements and comments made in the observation reports appear to be factual accounts of what was observed, along with suggestions for improvement. Mr. Tobin did not implement the recommendations in subsequent observations. In addition, Mr. Tobin has produced little evidence to satisfy his burden that the ratings were not related to job performance, but merely alleges that his ratings were subject to inaccurate supervisory judgments. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Mr. Ficalora. Thank you. We're now going to ask the appellant and his union advocate if they have any cross-examination for the principal in regard to his statement, documents. This would be your
Okay,
opportunity.
yes, Mr. Ficalora, just to clarify the discrepancy with the April observations. Now, the April 9th observation report is listed there as his formal observation, and the April 11th was the informal. Exactly, was that a misprint for April 9th?
No, it was not a misprint.
Was that his formal observation?
Yes, it was.
Okay, did he receive a pre-observation and a post-observation for the observation of April 9th?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no further questions.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, well, I'd like to know that based upon what has been shown as far as the region scores that were done that year, do you recall what the percentage of the department was in the global regions?
I recall, no, I do not.
Well, would it come as a shock if I said it was 28%?
Wait. You can't offer it as 28%. Actually, you could ask that as a question,
Yeah.
but you did. So the question is, now the principal's already indicated, the principal already indicated he doesn't recall, or he doesn't recall what the number is. But the follow-up question, which I'll allow, is, Mr. Ficalora, say it again, would it come as a shock?
Would it come as a shock to say that the school scored 28%, passing global regions?
Would that come as a shock or not? Or
Nothing shocks me about anything.
Then will you be aware then, the fact that I did score high on those other numbers, that my classes came in 55%, which was double the department rate of
I
passing?
don't know that either, sir.
okay.
If it was 95%, I wouldn't know that either.
Okay, the thing is, the question was appropriate, and the answer, we're going to take it as a candid reflection of what the principal is able to respond. He said, first question, he wasn't aware, he wasn't sure, doesn't recall, and the other ones he indicated as he indicated. I don't need to quote him, but he indicated as he indicated he was responsive to your question, and so...
Evan, just one more question, is
Sure.
that the experience that the AP of Social Studies has as far as grading the faculty, how many classes do you know of that she's taught over the years in global history or American history?
Is that relevant to something that I said that you're asking me
I
about?
think it's relevant to my case.
Oh, actually, Mr. Ficalora, the question is, I'm not sure if you know the answer or you don't know the answer, but the question is, what was the question?
How many classes has the AP of Social Studies taught over the years in either American history or global history?
Okay, now, actually, you know what? I think that would be a question that it would be better if the chairperson said, I'd rather not ask the principal to respond to that. And the reason is, the appellant has the burden of showing a substantial defect. In establishing a substantial defect under the advanced rules, the principal has already indicated, he's on the record, and you can disagree, Mr. Tobin, and I can disagree, and Mr. Rosenblum could disagree. But he's on the record, he just said, I took it down, I recorded it, he's on the record saying that the supervisors were trained in advance. So to ask him, in regard to an advance rating,
Right.
if the AP, how many courses the AP had been experienced in rating
yes.
in social studies, that is not a good, that's not an appropriate question, I don't believe, for advance, because her experience in rating social studies classes is independent under advance, and in following up from what the principal has already stated in the record, it's his position that supervisors, I'm sure he's referring to himself and his assistant principal, that the supervisors were trained in advance, and he indicated that the training was in advance and that made them able to determine in keeping with the state education department decision, how to rate the components of a lesson.
Understood. But part of the components of the lesson has to be knowledge of the teacher teaching the class being taught. And if what I am contending is that if the AP herself does not teach those classes, then she is then ineligible to rate certain aspects of a history lesson in that regard.
You can certainly, because you brought up elements of that during your presentation, you can say those exact words appropriately as your concluding statement or part of it.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, and again, my job is not to protect the principal. My job is to protect the process. And so when you asked him to identify what experience, I can see clearly, and I'm not going to dispute it or affirm it, but you feel that in order for a supervisor to evaluate a lesson, they should have experience either teaching the lesson or having been a supervisor.
Correct.
Okay, that's your feeling. It could be my feeling. It could be Mr. Ficalora's feeling. Whatever it is, that's a feeling. However, under advance, and in particular where the appellant has the burden, the principal has already established that his supervisors were trained to evaluate all the components of a lesson under the advanced protocols and the SED decision. If he says that, and then you still say, but wait a minute, I think that's your philosophy. We may all subscribe to it or not. But if you say, I think that social studies licensed people should be evaluating social studies teachers, and perhaps that would mean that if the principal had a license in gym, he would be able to come in and evaluate a lesson in social studies. Again, I'm making a hypothetical. But that is definitely your conjecture, and in the summary you will state it. But we're not going to ask the principal if he subscribes to your belief. You'll state it in the statement.
When the person that was training the APs in the procedures of evaluating, questioning, etc., went into many classrooms with each AP of the school, can I ask, are you aware of any time where that person from out of school came in with Mr. Ostakis into my classroom?
Wait, what?
The person that was training the APs would follow the APs into certain classrooms to make sure that everything was being done.
What's this have to do with you establishing a substantial defect? Whether or not whoever came in with the AP.
So that she didn't understand how to evaluate. Because he's saying that she was trained, and I'm going to say that she was not trained
because
as far as I could see. Without the person, because as far as I know, she was supposed to come with that person.
What if she went into somebody else's room? Anyway.
Yeah, okay. All right.
This is all hypothetical.
Okay.
And it's all...
understood.
At this point, we're ready for concluding statements. And Mr. Tobin, I want to tell you, it is a pleasure working with you, and it is a pleasure working with Mr. Ficalora, and it's a pleasure working, I don't want to leave Mr. Rosenblum out of it. And the reason is, you say what you say, and then you say what you just said, which was understood, and we move forward. And Mr. Ficalora has followed the lead of the chairperson, and I think there's a very great level. There's a great disagreement, but I think there's a great level of mutual respect on both sides of the phone. And even if it's not total, and even if I'm delusional, that's my feeling, and I thank you for it. Okay? Thank you for deluding the chairperson in that regard. No, I'm kidding. Okay. I am thankful. This hearing is a much more positive sense to me than many others. Mr. Rosenblum knows what I mean.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Rosenblum. I know. Mr. Ficalora, this is your opportunity to make a concluding statement in this case. Your last word on the record. You can make a concluding statement at this time, please.
I stand on the record that of the observations that have been entered into advance and the statement that I made earlier, and that's my concluding statement.
Okay, thank you. 1 second, I'm just taking a note. Okay, and so the very final word, I'm going to ask the advisor, his client, to make their concluding statement at this time.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. As we indicated earlier, the children in Mr. Tobin's class during 2013-14 did achieve success on the local and state measures, definitely indicative of a very positive instructional program that Mr. Tobin presented from September to the point when he took his terminal leave at the end of the school year. We would like to again note that according to Mr. Tobin, there was a discrepancy in terms of the delineation of the dates for those observations in April, with the April 9th listed as a formal. According to Mr. Tobin assures us that that was not a formal observation. He was not aware that he was going to be observed at that time. There was no pre and post observation conferences, and in fact, the period of presence in the room by the observer was under 10 minutes for that April observation, which we did share. Mr. Tobin did explain some points, or has clarified some points which we feel are very admirable and very indicative of his rating. We feel that the rating that he received, we did indicate the defects that were present, and again, we stand on the record in terms of the comments made for the different observations, in which Mr. Tobin commented on those evidences that were used to substantiate those ratings, and we do ask again that this rating of ineffective that Mr. Tobin received 2013-14 be set aside. Mr. Tobin, you wish to say a few words?
Yes, I'd like to conclude by saying that this hearing was supposedly scheduled several times. First time was supposed to be for the ineffective. Then I received a letter saying that the grade was being changed to a U. Both times the AP of Social Studies was listed along with the principal as to going on the hearing. I received this particular notice where the AP of Social Studies was taken off the list of people appearing. I believe that my whole entire case was based upon what the AP did at these observations and what she said to me one-on-one in front of class, in front of my students,
Hold on
etc.
1 second. Hold on
Yes.
1 second. 1 second.
I can't use that.
Well, no, it's not. I just need to stop and think. I need to stop and think of what it is you're saying and where you're likely to go. Okay? And I don't want to draw conclusions or prejudge where you might be going. You're just about to say what the AP said during a class. Was that in your specific
Yes.
arguments? Okay, then please get. I just had to stop because.
Yeah, when she stood up in the back and she shouted
yes,
that I was
okay.
incorrect and all this.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I
okay.
think the fact that the
You
principal...
started with the thing about this case was scheduled as one thing,
Yes,
scheduled as another
yes.
thing. That's
irrelevant.
Go ahead.
Because
Keep going. Go
okay,
ahead.
because when
I'm sorry to have
okay,
interrupted
I
you.
thought
I
when
just
I was
wanted to-
told while I was on the road that this day was scheduled for today, I anticipated seeing the AP's name along with the principal's name when I got home to see the official form.
Let me let you know that the assistant principal, under the guidelines established by the UFT, and DOE, in particular with the input of the UFT, the assistant principal may not appear unless the assistant principal has been specifically introduced by the principal to come down to 65 Court Street.
Yes, I was made aware
So,
today
yes.
that was the case.
So as long
I had
as you know,
I had no idea
it is
that
not-
was it.
It is not
Yes,
the Office
right.
of Appeals and Reviews.
Totally
it is
understood.
not the principal who is keeping the assistant principal
Right.
back.
Totally
That's-
understood.
Okay, then continue.
Totally understood.
Okay.
I just thought that in order to prove my case, that the principal was basing all his points on what the AP is telling him went on in
He's the
the
rating
conferences.
officer,
Right.
and you've got a rating issue. So
Right.
Continue with
right.
your summation.
So I feel that not given the opportunity to have the principal hear the AP respond to what was being said today, I think has been a misjustice to the ineffective that I have received. I believe that the things that she did either one-on-one with me, in front of people, for example, I was not allowed to give final grades to my students, which to this day I don't understand. She gave a student with over 120 absences a passing grade that I never would have done. She gave another student with over 100 absences.
Hold on a second.
Yes.
Okay, I know how passionate you are. Okay?
Uh,
I know how passionate you are. But,
that doesn't go with this.
no, you know why? Let me ask you something. Did we ever hear that before?
I believe I put it in my response
You did? About the grades?
about the grades. That
you weren't allowed
I was
to
not
give
allowed
grades?
to
Is
give
that
final.
here?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
It's in one. It's in one of them.
Okay, I want to just establish that, and I'll tell you the
Okay.
reason. Yeah, see if, in here, see if you can find it.
Well, this isn't. That's what I typed out.
No, I
Yeah, I know.
typed it out.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that.
Where's
I don't have that.
Is this yours?
This is mine.
Yes, see where it says something about the assistant principal did not allow you to give grades?
First couple of sentences.
Ah, you're very, very accurate. Okay. Very good. The reason I wanted you to show me this is I wasn't sure if I had been familiar with it.
Okay.
You're right. Please continue.
Right, and another student that had about 100 absences, who she complained that I didn't deal with properly in one of my observations, I was not giving him a 55. To get a 55 means you could take independent study to make up the grade. She gave that student a 55. You know, and I just didn't quite understand that if you're absent so many times, you should take the full year again, not just do an independent study and get a credit for it. And it seemed that she was very inconsistent with some of those students. In my last class, as was mentioned before, high-level class, lots of 85s, lots of 90s, several 99s. No problems in period 5, no problems whatsoever. They were a great class that she came in to observe, and I didn't understand any of those ineffectives that she gave it either on the mini one and on the formal one. I didn't comprehend why it was a case when they are very well behaved, they're very highly functioning, they all participate. One student in particular, I was absent a lot. He showed up the day that she did the April 11th observation, and he took control over the class. He wanted to show the AP that he was participating, and he did answer a lot more questions than maybe other students should have. She didn't add that in because she claimed that it was the mini observation, but she let me know about it. And that's why when I look at the 9th and the 11th, I can't correspond them because they were so opposite of what the reality was. And if I had signed one observation one day, I would have looked at it, I would have picked it up. If I signed the other observation another day, I would have picked it up. But by signing both on the same day as I did in my mailbox, it didn't hit me that she reversed the observations on me. And it didn't get me until September, when I finally got copies of my observations again to see that's exactly what she did. The custodian threw out everything in my room the day that I left. And that included some of the observations I kept in my drawer that I was going to pick up at the end of the school year to clean out my desk. It was already cleaned out when I got back. There was nothing in the room, in the back closet. Everything was dumped. That's why I had to request second copies of observations from the principal, where he gave me the 4 observations at that time in late September, early October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for letting me get that out of my system.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing it with us. And I would like to thank all of you for your participation and cooperation. I am charged with the responsibility of preparing a report of these proceedings that will be sent to the Chancellor. The Chancellor's designee will forward a written decision to all the participants. It is now 2:20 p.m. and I am I am concluding the review.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Mr. Ficalora,
Yes.
I want to thank you. This
Thank
is
you.
summertime. I want to thank you for your full and undivided attention to honor the due process rights that all of us have fought for. And thank you for your presentation, your deliberation, your responses. And Mr. Tobin, I want to thank you for bringing the passion of your feelings and the passion of your commitment and convictions about your rating to us. And Mr. Rosenblum, thank you for representing your client so effectively. Everyone, all I can say is the very, very best to each of you in your own pursuits and as you move forward. And most especially, and I know Mr. Tobin is going to join me in this, Mr. Ficalora, I wish you and those beautiful children in the school that you are now responsible for, well, you've always been, but I mean that you are responsible for. Mr. Tobin has moved into retirement, but I want to just say that I know he joins all of us in wishing those kids the best shot at life that you, Mr. Ficalora, can supervise for their future, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care now. Bye-bye.